Get on.
Welcome to Random Movie Reviews. I'm Nathan, and today I'll be talking about Purple Rain. So as of recently, I've been really getting back into Prince's music. I've been a fan of Prince for a long time. In fact, my introduction to Prince, like a lot of people, was through this movie. I remember I was watching it on TV with my dad back in 2016. And I remember just being mesmerized by the musical performances in the movie and not really paying attention to the actual story. I was basically just watching it for the music stuff, and I thought the music was catchy. I thought it was original. And I really was taken aback. I was like, I've never really listened to Prince. Of course, I've always known Prince ever since I was a little kid. I've always heard about Prince. But it wasn't until then, though, I was like, oh, wow, this is some really great, interesting, poppy, synth, rock music that has elements of rhythm and blues and soul and just an interesting concoction of a lot of different genres, and it sounded completely unique. And then literally maybe 2 or 3 days after I watched the movie on TV for the first time, Prince died. And it was like, dude, what the hell? You know, it was one of those moments where it just was kind of eerie. And then, you know, I saw people like my parents and, you know, people who are older than me that grew up idolizing Prince and seeing how his death impacted them. And it was really unfortunate. But, you know, ever since then, I've always really admired Prince. I go into his catalog of music quite often. Picking out some of my favorite songs. I was just kind of for fun working on a playlist on my Spotify that's like 6 hours long now of all my favorite Prince stuff. And as I've been doing this recently, I was like, you know what? I have not seen Purple Rain in a while. It's been a few years, and I decided, hey, I'm in a Prince mood. If you're in a Prince mood, then you have to watch Purple Rain. It's like a law. And before I did it, though, I went on Letterboxd. And I was looking at reviews of Purple Rain because I was just curious to see what the consensus of the movie is. And the thing that I noticed right off the bat was the people who really liked this movie and gave it really high reviews said, oh, this movie may not be perfect and, you know, it could be kind of cheesy and, you know, not great in a lot of areas, but the music is so amazing that it triumphs over all of those flaws, right? Those were many of the positive reviews kind of echoed that sentiment. Who cares if this movie's flawed or cheesy? The music's amazing. Prince is awesome to watch, so that makes it a great movie. And then I saw the negative reviews, which were like, this movie sucks, but the music's really good. And what's hilarious is like both sides of the spectrum of this movie, of people reviewing it, were basically saying the same thing, which is like, the movie's not good and you can kind of pick it apart for a lot of different things, but everybody agreed that the music is amazing, and that alone makes the movie worth watching. So I decided to watch this movie for the first time, really absorbing it as a movie, and coming to the realization that it is very much a flawed movie. It's not very good in terms of being a tonally consistent film. This movie jumps around tonally, where it's trying to be charming and romantic, energetic and exciting with its rock, and then really dark and melodramatic with the scenes focused around Prince's parents and their relationship and how that affects Prince. And it all comes off as very, like, almost like a bad soap opera.
Mom! Dad!
Keep this place clean!
Please, Dad, she's heard you!
He wants to kill me.
He's crazy!
Oh man, the movie, I mean, it's like, I think objectively there's a lot of issues with this movie, but what makes it really enjoyable is, of course, Prince himself. He's just, even if he's not the greatest or most versatile actor in the world, he is just captivating. He has that charisma that is like 1 in a million. And of course, the music segments in this movie are legitimately some of the best music segments in any movie ever. I mean, by the time you get to the finale of this movie and Prince is playing Purple Rain, I mean, that song hits on a completely harder emotional level ever since Prince's passing. It's hard not to get choked up. It's hard not to be swept up in the passion, in the beauty, in the emotion of that song. It truly is one of the most beautiful and perfect ballads ever written. But before I get into all of the elements of this movie, we should do a brief overview of the plot. Won't really take long. So the movie centers around Prince's character, who is simply known as the Kid. He is a up-and-coming rock star that is trying to make it with his band, The Revolution. He's dealing with a tumultuous and painful home life where his father who we find out later in the movie was a failed musician, is very abusive towards his mother. And while all of this is happening, there is a new girl in town named Apollonia who is trying to make it and be a successful pop star. She ends up meeting the kid. They end up having a little bit of a relationship. And then there's also a rivalry with Morris Day and The Time. There's a musical rivalry. They're trying to see who's going to be the bigger, more successful musician, even though it's pretty funny to think that Prince wrote all of the songs that Morris Day played, but in the context of the movie, he didn't, so that's fine. We can overlook that. The movie attempts to have some sort of love triangle between Apollonia, Morris Day, and the kid. And then also throughout the movie, Wendy, the guitar player, and her sister are, they're writing a new song that they're trying to show the kid. The kid's like, I'm not interested in it. I'm the only one who writes the songs in this band. But throughout the movie, he keeps listening to the song. He's clearly drawn to it, and the movie's trying to foreshadow the epic climax in the film where, the kid overcomes the trauma of his father's attempted suicide, the trauma of becoming his dad and abusing Apollonia and feeling guilty about that. He channels all of these complex emotions, and he puts it into the song that he wrote out of Wendy's material, of course, being Purple Rain. And then we get one of the most awesome, epic endings to a movie ever, where he not only plays Purple Rain, but he also plays I Would Die For You and Baby I'm a Star, and that's the movie. And we also end on probably one of the most epic freeze frames in film history. So that's the movie as a whole. It's probably the greatest example of a movie featuring music that is so damn good that it actually tricks people into thinking that it's a good movie. Because, like I said, the movie itself is very flawed. The romance between the kid and Apollonia is incredibly surface level. There's not a lot of depth to it. It kind of is just shoehorned into the movie because you need a love story, right? The part of the movie that I think is the most interesting from a dramatic standpoint, that I feel isn't the most fleshed out and was kind of a missed opportunity, is, of course, the relationship between the kid and his father. I can appreciate what the film is trying to communicate in that, men who are often abusive in relationships, it's a result of their upbringing. It's kind of like the film basically saying that, the kid is being aggressive and abusive towards Apollonia because he sees his father being abusive to his mother, and that's affected him psychologically, and that's why he's kind of going off the rails whenever he's angry or jealous or whatever. It's an interesting angle to explore. I don't think the movie does it in any truly meaningful way. All of the dramatic scenes in this movie, including the really big dramatic moment in the film where the father attempts suicide, it all comes off as being a bad soap opera. I mean, it just does. I'm sorry. The acting is completely over the top from everybody involved. It just reeks of really heavy-handed melodrama that just feels very manufactured and not grounded in reality at all. There's not a lot of realism in this movie, and I think that kind of goes into another interesting aspect of Purple Rain, which is that Purple Rain is often compared to another movie that came out many years later called 8 Mile. And I'm not the first one to think of this comparison. Everybody's kind of pointed out that 8 Mile is very similar to Purple Rain in terms of the setting of the movie, in terms of the protagonists, in terms of the overall structures of the movie. For those who may not know, 8 Mile is a loosely inspired movie about Eminem's upbringing, but he doesn't play Eminem. He plays a different character known as B-Rabbit. Similar to that of Prince in Purple Rain, Eminem in 8 Mile is trying to be the next big rap star. He has a tumultuous home life similar to that of the kid. He deals with anger and jealousy issues. He has a relationship similar to that of the kid in Apollonia in Purple Rain with, of course, Brittany Murphy, R.I.P. He also has a musical rival known as Papa Doc in 8 Mile, and the movie ends similar to that of Purple Rain, where we get a rap battle between Eminem and Papa Doc to see who's on top. We don't really have that in Purple Rain. What we have is Morris Day performing The Bird, amazing song, and it's kind of like, okay, we're doing the music standoff here, and that's the way that Purple Rain ends. Is Morris Day goes first, he does his song, the crowd loves it, and then Prince comes out there and just completely destroys and ends up winning the musical battle, if you will. So 8 Mile is very similar. I will say that although Purple Rain certainly is the movie that has the stronger musical sequences by far, I don't think anybody could really deny that, 8 Mile is, objectively speaking, the better movie. It's much more grounded. It's much more realistic. It's much more mature in its depictions of Eminem's character and the relationship he has with his mother, and just the rough life of living in, the harsh areas of Detroit. And one thing I was kind of thinking about was that, when Eminem was super successful, he was wearing very outlandish clothing. He had the dyed, bleach blonde hair, wearing all these, kind of gangster aesthetic clothes. But in 8 Mile, his hair is his natural color. He's wearing beat up, tattered up clothes. He can't even really afford to get a car. It's like you genuinely believe this is an artist who is struggling and is looking to get out of the situation he's in. Where you compare that to Purple Rain, where sure, Prince is still living at home with his parents, and his parents, his dad in particular is an abusive asshole. But Prince looks like Prince. He has all the amazing outfits and attire, the amazing sunglasses. He has a fucking custom-made purple motorcycle. He has amazing musical instruments. That Telecaster is not a cheap guitar. So it's like this movie doesn't do a good job of communicating a tortured artist who is trying to succeed and become the next big rock star, because he already looks like he's the next big rock star. You know what I'm saying? It's like in 8 Mile, Eminem looks poor, he looks dirty, he looks desperate to get out of a situation, where Prince is pretty much Prince from the beginning of this movie to the end. That struggle of an artist trying to become the next big thing. You never really feel that in this movie because the music is already incredible. There's really no musical obstacle that Prince has to overcome, outside of the fact that he needs to get over his own ego to play the Purple Rain song that Wendy came up with in the context of the movie, where you compare that to 8 Mile, where Eminem in the beginning of the movie tries to rap. He can't. He chokes because he doesn't have the self-confidence. And then throughout the course of the movie, by the time we get to the finale of 8 Mile, he has all the confidence. And then that makes that satisfying ending that much more satisfying because he overcame a dramatic character arc. You don't really get that in Purple Rain. And then I realized the reason why so many people give this movie a pass is because it's more of a music video to accompany the album Purple Rain than it is like a legitimate movie, if that makes any sense. And now I know I just ragged on Purple Rain pretty hard, but I do really enjoy this movie because I think the music's awesome. I do think the movie's entertaining, even though I think some of the more dramatic moments in this movie kind of come off as unintentionally funny.
Answer me, motherfucker!
It is very cheesy, but at this point, the cheesiness just adds to the entertainment. And I'm not gonna lie, if the music wasn't as amazing as it is, this movie would not really be as fondly remembered. Let's just be honest. This movie is elevated by Prince, by his charisma, and by the amazing songs that are all over this movie. My personal favorite, Purple Rain is obviously the biggest highlight, but my personal favorite performance is the Beautiful Ones performance. It's maybe my favorite vocal performance that Prince has when he just really lets it loose at the end. He's doing his famous Prince shrieks and rock screams, and I just love that song. But yeah, it's undeniable that the movie is flawed, and it kind of just is what it is. But if you watch the movie for the music, for the aesthetic, for the on-screen charisma that Prince has, that is just automatically captivating, it's a hard movie to dislike, in my opinion. Although I'm sure there are people out there that try to watch this movie are just like, I think this movie is terrible. I can understand where they're coming from, but I still enjoy it for what it is. And like I said, Purple Rain, that whole soundtrack is maybe the greatest movie soundtrack of all time. Certainly one of the greatest pop records ever made. So there's no denying that. So anyway, guys, that's my thoughts on Purple Rain. It is a flawed movie that I can't help but enjoy, but I want to hear from you guys. What are your thoughts on this film if you've seen it? Do you like it? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Mention it in the comments below. And as always, thank you guys for watching.